All right, everybody, we are live. Thank you for everybody for joining this webinar. My name is Amir. I'm the IT operations manager at IT for Less. And as most of you are aware, we're going to be discussing some of the cybersecurity awareness that everybody within the company or staff members that work at whatever field they are to be aware of these red flags that are going on in our today's world. So, with that in mind, I would like to let you know that cybersecurity and especially the phishing attacks that happen on daily basis are increasing more and more towards happening very frequently. So, in order to prevent that, and most of the issues that happen is that it is based on the end user that is interacting with those phishing attacks. Now, the purpose of this webinar will be to guide you through, be more attentive at the phishing attacks that you may receive, or to have more knowledge in those cases so that for next or future interactions with any of those phishing emails that you think have landed in your email inbox, for you to be careful. Now, with that in mind, I would like to start with our webinar, and let me just share my screen and let's go. So, we're going to be, of course, discussing a couple of things. First being the damages done by the phishing attacks or similar attacks, and then how we can prevent those by being attentive and more careful within those phishing emails. So, starting first with the overview and why cyber awareness really matters. And the most obvious thing would be that the big breaches start small. And that is obviously the most case that happens within the big breaches. So, in case of very small details, we'll have to be very careful about those things. And over 80% of security breaches are caused by human error. So many threats are preventable with the awareness of simple red flags, and we're also going to be discussing those just shortly. So those red flags can be unusual emails, they can be fake logins, weak passwords, or more. The passwords that we're talking about can be anything similar to 1234567 8, or something like your name and then your date of birth. That is obviously a very bad combination of password, and you should be more careful about it. But then again, we'll be discussing more about this. And then lastly, I want to also highlight that cybersecurity isn't just an IT issue, it's also a shared responsibility. So with that in mind, let's go first into what is the most common cause of security breaches in organizations. And there's a list of it. The first being obviously is the reusing passwords habit. So let's say you're using the same password and google.com using your Microsoft account, that can be your Facebook account. And then imagine if any of those platforms are breached, that means the other passwords that you're using with the same passwords in other platforms, they have a big chance of being breached as well. The reason for that being is that because the password that was created for the platform that was breached has the same password that you've created in other platforms that you're using. Now, you might tell me that the Facebook or Google platforms are very vulnerable, are not vulnerable to phishing attacks, but then there are cases of data breaches as well. And in fact, there was a very recent data leak, which was in mid-June, which happened at Apple. And that is one of the things that most of the people thought would not happen in any time soon, or in fact, not really would happen with the Apple products. Why? Because we are all aware that Apple products or the Apple ecosystem is using the iCloud keychain, and all of those things are being stored very securely. But even in those cases, not one single platform is really safe from being breached. So any platform that we're talking about can be the next breached uh, victim. Now, the second point is clicking on suspicious links. Let's say, for an example, you've received an email, and inside of that email, you think there is a legitimate link that would take you, for example, to a document that you were expecting from an employee, but you clicked on it, and that link was a phishing link, and it takes you to a login page. You log into it with your Microsoft account for reference, and then that is what happens with the breach. The third point being ignoring software updates. That is something that you have to look into and be on alert whenever there's an update that is ready for you to install on your endpoints. And then oversharing an email or chat. For example, if you are sharing the email that is sensitive with your colleagues, and that email is also shared with the other representatives or other staff members, this will lead to a bigger risk of that email to land up in the wrong hands. And then last one is, of course, all of the above. So always be careful about reusing the passwords, clicking on suspicious links, and you should be safe for the most part. But then that's not over, because we are also in other scenarios where phishing is not just one attack type of thing that the staff member or any user can um, be interacted with. So for red flags, there are three types of red flags. The first being communication based, and that is whether if there's suspicious activity or unexpected emails. Let's say, for example, you're not really expecting any email, but you've received it and you have no idea if you've signed up to it. Then there's the urgent language. For example, act now or immediate response required. That is something that is really suspicious, and most of the times the phishing is acted on that point, which the way that they're working with is social engineering, and they want you to be afraid or they want you to be rushed so that they can catch you on a mistake that they're anticipating you to make. Now, other thing is links or attachments from unknown senders. Please be careful about those. So if you're not expecting any attachment, or if you're not expecting any link from anyone, or you think that the email is suspicious, do not click on any of those links. That is where the phishing starts, and that is where the whole um, chain reaction starts. And we'll talk about the chain reaction just in a bit. So other thing might be slightly misspelled sender address or domains. This is also a very um, top one of the things that you should be careful about. And then for the other type, and that's the second type, the red flag, which is behavioral. So using weak or reused passwords, sharing login credentials with others, leaving devices unlocked or unattended. For example, you've gone to a lunch break and your device is unlocked, but there are people that you will really not want to have them access your device, but you still left your device unattended. That is just a very red flag that you are stumbling upon. And that might be a very common thing. You're at a cafe and you're doing the same thing. So be careful about that as well. Clicking links on or approving requests without verifying, that is actually something that is related to financial departments. For example, they received a link for any approval of purchase. They click on the link is turning out to be a phishing link, and that's how the user gets compromised. The third red flag being the technical red flag, and that falls into ignoring software or security update notifications. If you receive those, I know that most of us think that those are annoying notifications and we should just avoid them. And I do understand that most of the people are running into that thing, but that is something that we should not skip based on the notifications that we receive, because most of the security updates are very critical, and the reason that they have been deployed is because there was a previous update that was installed on the phones, and there was a security hole that was patched with a new upcoming one. The other thing is connecting to public Wi-Fi without protection. So you're connecting to a public Wi-Fi without really knowing the place, or if you are not really familiar with the Wi-Fi. So avoid doing that unless if you really know that this Wi-Fi is trusted. If not, or if you have um, any doubts about the email about the Wi-Fi, at least connect to a VPN first and then connect to that Wi-Fi network. So disabling antivirus or firewall settings, that is also a critical thing that you should not do. And then failing to report suspicious device behavior or pop-ups. Now let's talk about the case scenario and what happens if you fall for a phishing attack. So that is the most critical thing and that is basically the worst thing that can happen. First thing being is that hackers gain access to your company's data and systems. And the worst thing is that they don't access only your information, they access the whole company's information. There is always a chain reaction. So they start from one user and then they jump into another user. Why? Because the second user is also vulnerable to being compromised now that your account serves as their man in the middle. The second being is the financial loss, reputation damage, and legal consequences. And the third one being ransomware or malware infections that could disrupt your operations. Now let's take a look at a more detailed chain reaction on what is happening. So I just want to let everybody know how one missed red flag can lead to a loss. And that all starts from missing a red flag. So we missed a red flag. We clicked on a fake link. What happens is that if that link was suspicious, our credentials are stolen, which means the account has been compromised, which also leads to data breach or ransomware happening. So once that is done, the financial damages appear. And after that, there's the reputational damage. The reason being, your accounts in the company that have been compromised, they are now acting as the spam bots. What's going to happen is that the attacker is going to use those legitimate accounts that were compromised and send spam emails to other sources. And the recipients that they usually get those emails from these accounts that were compromised. So for example, let's say I'm a I'm a staff member from a financial department. If that's the case, and my account gets compromised, my email address is also compromised. So if an attacker just sends an email to any other recipient that expects an email from me with a link in the email, there's 70 to 60% that they're going to be breached because they're not aware that the account has been breached. But there are always some red flags that they can be careful about. There's going to be a change in the email language and the way the user communicates. So you always have to be on alert. Whether if you're receiving an email from a trusted source or if an unknown source, you should always be on alert. And the final thing that is going to happen is the downtime. That is the least thing that we want to happen to the corporate environment. So about the email phishing, and if you remember, we spoke about phishing and that there's not just only one type of email phishing, there's many of them. So the first one being obviously is email phishing, but then there's spear phishing, there's smishing, and there's vishing. And trust me, there are a lot of more other common types of phishing attacks and similar to them, but those are the most popular ones that attackers stick to. So we're just going to be directly addressing those and which one is doing what to be specific. So the most common one being the email phishing, and the fake emails that are sent trying to be impersonating someone or something, perhaps an influential figure or any service that you might be using. And you might ask, how do they know which services I'm using or who am I communicating with? Well, they have those monitored by you for you as well. So prior to attacking you, there is a specific way. If an attacker is really targeting you, he's going to do some research and homework before doing that, so that the attack is successful. Now, on the picture of the slide, if you can see, there is an example of the phishing email. So the first red flag being is the domain. And as you can see, it's coming from support at msupdate.net. If you do a quick Google search, you can find out that support at msupdate.net is not a legitimate domain, or it does not exist in Microsoft's ownership at all. So if you can see, it says your password for the Microsoft account, and it lets you know the email that was trying to be impersonating it was changed. If this was you, then you can safely ignore this email, and it's giving you more information. If this wasn't you, your account has been compromised. Please follow these steps. So it's giving you the links. As you can see, it says reset your password, review your security info, learn how to make your account more secure. Now, a fun fact is that all of these three links are taking you into one destination. And the most fun thing is that you can also opt out or change where you receive security notifications. See where the opt out is hyperlinked? That is also taking you to that suspicious link. So the best case scenario is to just delete the email that you are suspecting to be a phishing email. Spear phishing. So it's a highly personalized attack, and it's more common in terms of the attacker is only targeting one specific employee. It can be a CEO, for example. In that case, this is called spear phishing. So they're pretending to be your boss or someone in your organization, and they succeed because they impersonate you or someone you might interact with on daily basis. Let's say that there's an email coming from your CEO, and the email address is named based on your CEO's first and last name, but you did not pay attention to their email address. What's going to happen if you click on the link? Of course, you're going to get compromised with your account. So as you can see in an example below, it says, Gareth, are you at your desk? I need you to process an urgent wire transfer. Do you see a red flag here? The first red flag being that, which is the most obvious one, is I need you to process an urgent wire transfer. There is a social engineering tactic that is happening. They're trying to urge you to do something that they want you to make a mistake on, and that is urgency. As you remember previously, I said that there is urgency that they always try to strive on so that you can make a mistake on. And then smishing. Now, smishing is fake text messages, impersonating banks, delivery services, or any other service that are interacted to you through the SMS text. That can be USPS, for example. That can be uh, Pizza Hut. Any company that you might be interacting with, those attackers are going to be using smishing types. And as you can see, there is the example, two of the examples to be exact. One of them is being the USPS, and it says the package has arrived at the warehouse and cannot be delivered due to incomplete address information. Please confirm your address at the link. And you say, oh, okay, sure, let me do that. But then if you pay attention to the link, you can see that the link itself is very fishy, especially after .com, there's .7 cng.vip. Some of those things that you should be really careful about, it's almost to the jeweler level that you should be taking a look at. But there are always red flags that you can detect as long as you are on alert on daily basis. Then other is important message sent to you by someone else, code, Visa, debit card locked, call support. So now that is a smishing attack, and it's also a vishing attack, which we'll talk right now. So a phishing attack, what that is, it's short for voice phishing, which refers to fraudulent phone calls or voice messages designed to trick victims into providing sensitive information like login credentials, credit card numbers, or bank details. Now, please note that most of the cases, bank does not really get in touch with you unless if there are rare occasions. And one of those occasions can be that if you lost your credit card and the bank just has to get in touch with you and inform you about the loss of your credit card. Or, for example, if somebody found your credit card and they're trying to get in touch with you, in that case, the bank will get in touch with you and inform you about it. But 99% of the situations, banks don't contact you first unless if there are emergency circumstances. Now, we are going to be touch basing on the identification of a red flag, and this is something that I want you to pay attention to most of the cases. So always, please, always check the sender's email. Look for misspellings or unusual domain names. For example, an email that is from XYZ at gamel.com instead of it being XYZ at gmail.com. That is an obvious red flag. So you should always start from the sender's email address, and that will give you the idea. If that is not clear, then you can always take a look at the contents of the email section. And also look for urgency. As I mentioned, act now or lose access is a very classic red flag that attackers love using. Hover over links. That is something that you have to keep an eye on. Don't always click on a link. You can always just hover on a link, and then your mouse will let you know that there's going to be a very little box showing you what is the destination of that URL. Where is it taking you if you click on it? So before you click on a link, always just hover your mouse to the link and it will show you the full destination. If the link that you're seeing is very suspicious, just delete that email right away. Don't even try clicking on it. And then lastly is beware of unexpected attachments. If you are not expecting any attachment, just leave it be. It is much better to ignore it or confirm with someone that you're trying to or expecting an attachment from. So always take precautions. So in cases if you suspect a phishing attack but you're not really sure on what to do, um, do not click on the link or open attachments. That's first. Do not reply to the email. The third point being is that you have to report it to your IT immediately. In that case, what they're going to be doing is that in case if the email has landed in others' inboxes as well, IT will be able to take care of removing it from the others' mailboxes as long as it's an internal. If it's an external send out as well, that is something that is already out of the internal network. But as far as we go for the internal IT and for the internal staff members, IT will be able to remove those emails which landed in others' mailboxes. And then after you have reported the email, feel free to delete that phishing email and move on to your next stuff. And always remember, if you're unsure, it's better to double check than risk cyber attack. So this is always something you have to keep in mind. Now, for the best practices to stay protected, obviously one of the common ones that everybody has to follow is using strong passwords. They are usually a combination of lowercase, uppercase, special characters, and avoid using something personal, such as your pet's name, your hometown's name as your password. Be cautious on social media and messaging apps. look for other patterns discussed earlier and avoid interacting with any emails, mails, messages, or social media posts that qualify the criteria of a phishing attempt. And then never reply to an email that asks you to send personal or account information unless if you really trust that email, which in that case, you should always verify if the account that is requesting you for that information has not been compromised. And there are ways to confirm that. You can get on a call, you can double check and verify whether this user is really trying to get the personal information. But in that case, you should always be careful about it. And then, even if the email came from a member of your organization, do not rush into clicking on any links, as I mentioned, especially if there's an urgency or link encouraging you to transfer money through unusual methods or any methods. If there is an email of this behavior, that is the very biggest red flag that you should be aware of. Now, if you received a phishing email, you can always report it as a junk or phishing from Outlook, and this is how you do it on the right section. So there's the report section that has a drop-down arrow, and once you click on it, it depends on the email that you've received, whether you want it to be a report phishing or report junk. Now, report junk would be just a spam email. It's not really that dangerous, or it's just an unnecessary email. In that case, he will report it as junk. But if there is a phishing act on that email, then definitely report it as phishing. So in the slide, I want you to spot the difference. In the image to your right and the image to your left, if you can see, they're very, very similar. But there's a catch, and there is a very big catch, which not everybody will be able to spot right away. And the first one being this. If you can see, it says from support at, and if you just look far away, you can see that this looks like an M, but if you zoom in, this is actually RN Microsoft. So it's basically support at rnimicrosoft.co.uk, and that is the biggest red flag. Now, if you compare it to a legitimate email, which is from Microsoft, this is how it's looking: support at microsoft.co.uk, and the attacker just has done a very smart way of trying to impersonate himself coming from the Microsoft's domain. But what he's done is he tried to mimic the M, which is letting us know that this is not the legitimate email. And then the other thing, if you can have a look, let me just zoom it out. So Microsoft usually goes into letting you know which account they're referring to. In this case, given that this is a placeholder, not a placeholder, it's a template phishing, they don't really have time into typing your name in that email body. But still, be careful about it. However, in this case scenario, you can see that Microsoft is letting you know which account they're referring to. And then the other thing is being the button. If you can see, this is showing you a fully fledged button telling you to review recent activity. But on the phishing side, it's just giving you a link to access. So these are very simple red flags that you can spot as long as you're on alert. Other scenario would be the image to your right. Can you identify the factors that determine that it's a phishing email? So if you can see, it's giving the urgency. Our system has detected login attempt error while logging into your online banking account. We have temporarily suspended your account and your access to online banking and will be restricted if you fail to update. The very obvious thing is that there are grammatical errors everywhere. So that is something that happens most of the cases where the attackers just don't really bother into fixing their grammars with Grammarly, but that is something that also happens. So keep an eye on that as well. And then the other thing is that they are urging you for taking immediate actions. Otherwise, your account will be deleted and yada yada. Now, this is the other example of phishing emails. As you can see, it's also letting you know if you wish to stop or change this plan, please call this number immediately. And again, it's telling you immediately, it's rushing you into taking immediate actions. And usually Microsoft Office does not really send emails like that, so also be aware of it. Now, this one is an example of ShareFile, which is a sharing service similar to Dropbox or any other sharing services like OneDrive, MediaFire. In this case, the attacker just sent an email, and if you can see, the email already is suspicious. So mail at sf-notifications.com, and then the subject being action required, court order received. Now, action required, again, that is the urgency that they're trying to get you into. That's basically a trap. And then it says admin department has sent you files. The text that you can look at it is very obvious that it's just trying to mimic, or it's very simple. It is basically not related to you. It's not related to anyone that you think might be sending you emails. And then what happens once you click on this? It's going to take you to a login screen for Microsoft, Google, for example. You enter your credentials, and that's how you get compromised. So always and always be careful about the emails that you're not really expecting to receive. Also, one of the common and recent phishing email types that have been over the uh, phishing scenarios is a Dropbox link. So this is just a very basic email that is coming from any company, for example, that could be compromised or that could be um, trying to impersonate being. So it says in the email, kindly review the document below. There is no context. It just wants you to review the document below. You don't know who the recipient is. And as you can see, it attaches you the Dropbox link, and then you enter that Dropbox link. You click on the button, and then it takes you to a login screen. You think that you're accessing Dropbox, but you're actually accessing their trap. Then it also says password to access file is 1213. But you might be asking, am I really expecting this email? Simple answer is no. So in that case, you don't have any reason to access this link. And that is why being on alert is always the most primary thing that we should always be aware of. Being on alert gets you on one step ahead of the attacker. Another case scenario is from DocuSign, which is popularly used for signature cases. And as you can see, it's telling you. So first things first, it's coming from delivery at sharecloud.us. And it is in no way related to DocuSign. If it was coming from DocuSign, it would have the DocuSign domain in it. But then there are also cases where DocuSign can be spoofed. So if you're not expecting an email, please just verify if this is something related to you instead of deciding and clicking on that link. So it is always good to just verify. And that is it basically. And of course, my main advice on it and this whole scenario of cybersecurity awareness and those issues that happen, you should always be on alert. Most of these cybersecurity attacks that happen are human error based, unfortunately. Despite of the technologies advancing from day to day, there is still a big risk of that human error, and that is always going to happen no matter the phishing technologies that are being developed. You should always be attentive on the emails or any content that you're receiving. And in that case, 99% of the times you will be protected from those emails, as long from those phishing attacks, as long as you have your security um, updates installed, as long as you have nothing suspiciously installed on your computer or your phone or any other device, and also avoid having apps that you are not using on your computer or your phone. The less there are apps installed on your phone, the less is the risk. So if there is an app that is installed on your phone and it has been breached, there's a chance that that app will be the chain reaction of your account or your mobile device being compromised. So in that case, I would like to also let you know that we will be sharing the cheat sheets for the red flags with the participants. But in that case, um, I would also see if you have any other questions regarding those attacks. Please feel free, and we'll give uh, 2 to 3 minutes for the open window if there are any questions. If not, then thank you. So let's go into Q&A. Oh, okay. Hi, Patrick. Patricia. Um, no, at the moment, we don't host that, but please go ahead if you have any other questions. I'll be happy to assist you or answer any of your questions if you have. Well, we're looking for guest opportunities as well in the near future. And then also, please, okay. Okay, thanks. My question is too long. I'll email it to you. Sure, Patricia, I'll be happy to answer your question. Thank you. So, as I mentioned, the three top red flags: always pay attention to the email address and the sender. It can be Microsoft, it can be Sony, it can be Samsung, it can be Apple. Always pay attention to the email sender address. That is that is where most of the cases the attacker is obviously the attacker actually, and not a legitimate email that they're trying to be impersonating. The other thing is the grammar, the grammar faults, for example, but that is less common now given that the attackers are getting smarter. One of the other things is the second point being is the urgency, the sense of urgency. The reason for that is that they're using social engineering for you to be. They actually want you to be afraid or take urgent actions in order to resolve any of the issue that they're trying to scare you with, just so you don't lose any so-called access to your platform, which in reality, everything is fine with your platform. But that is something that they're trying to have you be trapped in. And then last thing being is that keep your laptop, phone, any other device that is connected to the network connection. Always keep in mind that we have to update those devices with the latest security patches. And then you'll be fine for the most of the cases as long as you're on alert. Looks like there are no other questions, so we'll be wrapping this up. And again, thank you very much for participating in this webinar. We'll be hosting more of those webinars uh, moving forward, and I was very happy to start this over. This is one of the critical topics in today's world. But thank you, and I hope that this was beneficial for your information. And I'll see you soon. Bye bye. My name is Amir, and talk to you later.